Broad ambition for me started in 1960. No one's going to want an old wooden Norfolk Broads hire fleet cabin cruiser at the Thames. They issued a Mayday. We were the closest vessel to them. It was just off Southwold.
There are some stories that just have to be told. Some are so remarkable that at first you may not even believe that they're true or possible. But this is a story of one family, one crew and one boat that undertook a remarkable journey. This is the story of Broad Ambition at sea. Broad Ambition is an example of one of the very few wooden Broads cruisers still in existence. Built by Jack Powles in 1966, I was keen to learn more about the boat itself, and I bumped into Charlie Griffin, otherwise known as Griff, at the Wooden Boat Show. And we also discussed the journey down to the Thames for the Royal Jubilee Pageant.
Going back. So, Griff,
Yes.
you've had and your family a long relationship with this boat. Tell us about Broad Ambition.
Right, so if you want to go back right to the start,
Yeah.
Broad Ambition for me started in 1960 when I was a babe in arms and came on the Broads for the first time. I think I was about two months old. With Mum and Dad, it was our annual family holidays.
Yeah.
And that was the start, although I was obviously too young to know about it, but every year it was our annual family holiday. And then when you get 5, 6, 7 onwards, you start realising what's about you and what you're up to. And it was looked forward to every year. We used to hire with brooms and Herbert Woods. Of course, back in them days, they were all wooden boats. And that's where the dream started. It was one day when I grew up, which, by the way, I never have. I've got older, but I've never grown up. I will have my own boat on the Norfolk Broads. And then when I got into my 20s and 30s, we were still hiring. It was because of the Norfolk Broads that I joined the Royal Navy, because I didn't know what to do with myself. And Mum and Dad said, turn your hobby or your favourite pastime into your job. My favourite hobby and pastime was coming on the Norfolk Broads. Boats, Royal Navy. 76 to 2000, had a great time. But it was when I was in my late 30s, this dream of mine of still having my own boat on the Broads was outstanding. It hadn't been ticked off. So I thought I'd better do something about this. So I went round the bazaars looking at prices of boats, and I was aghast to find the price of a turnkey wooden boat was just way beyond my means. It would have meant remortgaging the house and then some. Earning doors would have never stood for that. So I thought, right, I'm good with these, I know what I'm doing, I'll buy an old wooden boat and I'll do it up. Brother, Dad, 2 mates, well, you'll not be doing that on your own, we'll form a syndicate, we'll buy a boat. It took us 4 years to find what is now Broad Ambition. We were going all over the country finding these old wooden boats. There was a chap called John Williams at Stalham, sadly passed away, it was his time due, he was a family friend. Yeah. He was the guy that came out, every time we found one, we'd say, John, we found a boat. He'd get in his car, he'd meet us there, this could be down south, up north, wherever. Every time it's too far gone, leave it alone. That's not the one for you. And one day he rang us up out of the blue. He says, I found her. She's lying at Woodsdyke in Horning. She's a Jack Powles Star Supreme class. She's the original last wooden boat they built, and she made the mould for the Bourne 40s and the Bourne 35s. We didn't know this at the time. I don't think John did either. She was just a wooden boat, centre cockpit. He said, this is the one you've been looking for. Potentially she can be restored. And then tried talking us out of it because of he said, I've seen this happen so many times where a group of lads get together, buy a boat, big ideas, full restoration. They run out of enthusiasm, time, money, sell it on for a fraction of what they put into her. Fallouts, ruins friendships and families. Not with us. She was on the market for £6,000, I think, at the time. And I put one of the lads in the syndicate onto buying it. We paid £1,000 for her in 2002. Wow. We then took her up to Doncaster. That was another £1,000 back in the early noughties, into a huge shed we rented on a peppercorn rent, and there the dream really started. Initially we said, right, 18 months, 10 grand, let's get stuck in. And we had 20-ish associate members. They didn't put any money into the project, but they put a lot of time and effort. We opened that shed Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, all day Saturday and Sunday for 5.5 years. So 5.5, we said 18 months, 10 grand. That 10 grand went to 5.5 years. The 10,000 went to just under 70 and 8,500 man hours to restore her and get her back down on the Broads. Wayford Bridge, launched her in 07, big fanfare, lots of people came to see the launch. We had a fantastic day. She wasn't finished. At the time we thought she was. We've since learnt, being wooden boat owners, you never finish them. We're still doing it now. We're still upgrading, maintaining and trying to keep the wet stuff on the outside. So this gets us on to 2025. We've had it going for, 17, 18 years, and we're still on with it.
I've got to say, the wooden boats or wooden boats with a wooden top on the Broads, this is probably the most famous one for a lot of reasons. Now, we go back quite a long time because I first met you way back in 2008, I think, just after you'd launched this.
Yes.
And you had this amazing idea that this boat was slightly more capable than just popping up and down the Broads. What led you to that? Well,
it didn't. You're sort of right. There wasn't an amazing idea of let's take her out to sea. In the early years, you thought, do you know what? She's that strong and we've done such a good job and we're that confident. Maybe, just maybe, we can take her out to sea for the odd day. Yeah. Going out at Yarmouth or Lowestoft, along the east coast slightly and back in. If the weather conditions were right, we could maybe do it. And then the big red letter day came in 2012 when one of the lads, Dave Dalton, is no longer one of the owners, but he's still very much involved with us all. And he said, the Diamond Jubilee is approaching in 2012. Why don't we apply to be part of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Thames pageant down in London? And this was a year before the event actually happened. I said, Dave, no one's going to want an old wooden Norfolk Broads hire fleet cabin cruiser at the Thames. Yes, they will. Broad Ambition's got all this history that we've since discovered. They'll want that. And I said, well, if it makes you happy, mate, you crack on and get it applied for, which he did. And it was like going through interview processes and tranches, and eventually we got to the latest interview stage. He says, I can't do this on my own. He says, I'm going to need help.
We got to the last interview.
Yeah, last interview stage. So me and Dave met online. He's in Beverley, I'm in Doncaster. It took 4 hours that evening to go through it all and add everything the organisers wanted to see. We sent it off. This was about October 2011. I said, now what happens? Well, they'll let us know by January the 1st. I said, OK, I'll leave it with you. I forgot all about it. Never in my wildest dreams did I think they'd be in touch, but they were, and they said, please come down, you've got a place. That was the easy bit. Then it started. We had to make them more seaworthy. We had to make sure all the outlets were above the waterline. We had to put non-return valves on the bilge pumps. I had to hire life rafts and all the rest of it. I had to go back to school to relearn modern navigation.
So that's quite interesting, because I seem to recall you called upon some old colleagues.
Yeah, the old colleagues being the Royal Navy.
The Royal Navy, and suddenly you found yourself out at sea.
Back at sea again.
Back at sea with the Royal Navy.
And by that stage, this was 2012, I'd left the Navy 12 years previous. I'm a qualified navigator, but my navigation is parallel rules, dividers, pencils, dead reckoning, all that, and it's fine. That's still a proven method that works to this day. But we'd moved on. We now had the digital age and GPS, none of which I was familiar with. So I got in touch with the Royal Navy and said, right, this is what we're planning to do. We want to set Broad Ambition to sea, down to the Thames and back. I'm a bit rustic, can you help? Within a week, yes, get yourself to HMS President in London, stop in an hotel, join HMS Explorer at 7:30 Monday morning. We'll take you to sea to Hull, all day out at sea, then, not Hull, sorry, Lowestoft. You'll have a full day at sea on a refresher navigation course, and then a second day from Lowestoft back to Hull, where HMS Explorer is based, and you can get yourself home on the train. And it happened. They were fantastic. I got on board, I was welcomed on board, and they were using my naval rank, if you like, then, which was R.O. Griffin, and you were the first SCO, Senior System Communication Officer, on board. It was like just going back home. And I had 2 full days with the Navy, refreshing me on navigation.
Did you have to put up with naval rations for this?
Yes, of course I did.
So your love of pasta started.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, so you eventually you took the start of the journey down to the Thames. Now I remember seeing you off for that journey as well.
Yes.
Because you met some people at Alton Broad on the way
We
out.
did, yes.
And at the time, everybody, I think, was very keen to see you go.
I think more keen to see us back home.
I think when you went, did you have any trepidation? Because you've done a few small sea trips. At that
Yes,
point.
we had. We'd taken her out a few times and we'd played about with her at sea, so we knew she was capable, given the right weather conditions.
Yeah.
You can take anything to sea if the weather conditions are right.
Yeah,
You've got to be sensible about
that's a really
this.
key point.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a little while.
So we looked at the weather forecast, a window of opportunity appeared. We'd gone through Mutford Lock, we'd fully fueled, we were alongside MTB 102, and the weather window presented itself within like 2 days. The weather forecast was there. I had said to the organisers, under no circumstances will I risk the crew or the boat if the weather's not right. We just won't be there. But if the weather allows us, we'll go for it. And it did. So 3:30 one morning in the dark, set off out to sea, picked the first buoy up, turned south, and away we went. We had 5 crew. They'd all been briefed and sort of trained in what their responsibilities were with regarding the helm, because of course no autopilot, navigation. We had the paper system as a backup. We had the laptops with the modern GPS systems going. We had the radar reflector. We'd got the life raft. We'd done everything we possibly could to A, keep us safe, and B, stop us calling on people to come and help us out. And we sailed down the east coast. It was lovely. All the way down to the Thames estuary, turned west, went up the Thames. We had a bit of a struggle getting to South Marina Dock because they said we will stop locking in at 8:45. At 8 o'clock we're still on the Thames, a bit behind, flat down on the throttle. That produced a bit of an issue because the temperature was going up. We've since cured this issue, and I was thinking, well, we're in a world of hurt here. If we slow down for the engine temperature, we're going to miss the lock-in. If we keep flat out, we'll make the lock-in, but we'll overheat the engine. What the hell am I going to do? The answer was simple. Go into the galley, turn the hot tap on. That emptied the hot water system, filled it full of cold, which went round the engine and cooled it down. We had to do that 3 or 4 times. We got to South Marina Dock on time, locked in. It was 16 hours, that trip. We nearly ran out of diesel, but we did have plenty of beer on board.
Yeah, well, this is always good. So I remember the day of the pageant wasn't best weather. It was foggy and rainy.
To start with, it was okay.
Yeah.
But as the day progressed, the heavens opened and we got drenched. But we were geared up for that. We had the right clothing, we had the boat ready in all respects. We did salute the Queen with the straw hats, did the hip hip hooray. The Queen acknowledged it. It was all filmed. We had a fantastic time going down the Thames. The crowds cheering us on and acknowledging we were there and we were there for them. It was such a marvellous day.
And the Queen was on Gloriana.
She was, yes.
Yes, for those guys that were rowing, but nobody said there was an electric motor fitted until much later on.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing that, and it was a fabulous time. It was a very proud moment for people who knew you, knew the boat, to see that, and MTB 102. And
She led the pageant, of course.
Led the pageant, of
Yes.
course. And moving on from that, everything looked like it was okay. Now I remember you were live streaming this as well.
Yes.
So
Yes, Robin Shepherd was in the early days of live stream. It was all a bit hit and miss, but he did his best and it worked.
And I remember speaking to Robin at the time and shortly afterwards, and I was really amazed that actually it was the first, because I don't think anybody else was live streaming. This is predating the days of live stream, and I think so. The technology, he made it work, and he made it work really very well through a modem, potentially in a mobile phone, effectively. Tell me about the journey back.
Yeah, well, that was something that will live with us forever. I had 3 mediums who allowed me to use their weather forecasting capabilities, one of which, embarrassingly, was the Royal Navy. They'd kept supporting us and said, if there's any help you need getting Broad Ambition to the event and back, we're here. So I said, well, I could do with up-to-date weather forecasts. So they gave me a telephone number from Northwood, which is where all the sneaky stuff runs from, the submarines, this, that and the other. They said, there's this telephone number, don't hand that out to anybody. You can ring that 24/7. There will be a 3-ring commander on the end. He will give you the most up-to-date weather forecast sent in from all the stations throughout Europe that are monitoring it all the time. So we used them, and they were accurate, as was 2 other mediums. So this weather window presented itself. The wives and girlfriends, they'd gone home, and families on the train. We had the crew set up, ready to go. They'd been briefed, everybody knew what we're doing. We sailed this particular day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, out from West India Dock onto the Thames, downriver. As we got to the estuary, things started to not be what we were expecting, shall we say. The swell was getting bigger and bigger, the wind was picking up, and I thought, this isn't what we're forecasting. And I thought, hang on a minute, I know what this is. It's just like Braden water. If you've got wind going one way and the tide going the other, it picks the waves up. We all know that happens on Braden. We're familiar with it. So I thought, right, I'm not concerned. Once we're out through the estuary, we'll turn north, it'll calm down. It did not. It picked up, it got worse and worse. There were other boats as well as ourselves that had left Canary Wharf. They were Maydaying, SOSing, they were going in at Harwich, there were boats getting damaged. The waves picked up and up, then the rain and the wind came, it was horrendous. Broad Ambition was amazing. She started taking water up forward, and the forward bilge pump got active overnight, which was concerning. I was thinking we've sprung a plank, we've split a seam. No, all that was from the waterline to the forecastle on deck never really gets wet other than rainwater. Because we were ploughing into these huge troughs and rollers, the seawater pressure was coming through the seams. But as we carried on, she took up, like all wooden boats do.
They do, yeah.
She took up from the waterline to the forecastle, and by the time we got to Lowestoft, she has never been more seaworthy than she was on those last
They
few
say that the best thing with a wooden boat to make it seaworthy is to sink it and then pull it back out and float it again.
Well, it certainly worked with us. We did break a drinking glass and the chef, but the chef is ex-RAF, so what would you expect?
So that I can feel a personal dig there. I remember communication. I remember you about 1 o'clock in the morning had some issues, and I remember you were just off. I think 1 o'clock in the morning or something. You were literally just off Harwich at that point in time.
Yes, that was when we passed the main shipping channel, with the main ships going in and out, and it was a struggle. I had my brother was on the laptop on the charts. We had a lad on the helm, and the rest of us, I was saying, you must act as lookouts, because they didn't know what they were seeing. I did, but I needed their eyes. I needed to see red, green and white lights from other shipping to know their location, because of course we had no radar. We had a radar reflector, so we were hoping we were on the top of these huge rollers, they could see us via their radar, we couldn't see them. So it was mark one eyeball and looking for lights. And as we crossed this shipping lane, which you have to do at 90 degrees to the shipping lane, I could see all these lights, and someone would shout out, red and green to starboard, and I'd look up next time, oh yeah, I've got them. They're direct at us, they've got to give way, we're going, we all know the rules of the road. To be fair, we got through it without any major issues. You could see these huge ships altering course to go astern of us as we were crossing the shipping channel. And then when we got to the side, I did something that by the radio rules you're not really supposed to do. I went on VHF on channel 16 and I gave a general call. I said, all ships in the vicinity of Harwich Harbour entrance, this is motor vessel Broad Ambition. We've just cleared the shipping channel. I hope we didn't embarrass you too much, and thanks for allowing us through. We're on our way back to Lowestoft. And the replies we got were phenomenal. All these ships we didn't go to a working channel, which we should have done, but no, we stayed on channel 16. All these ships coming back, you go for it lads, we've got you on radar, keep going, you're doing a great job, you know, and nice to see you, and glad you enjoyed the Thames, and we're all behind you. Even Norwich radio services called us up and said, yeah, we've got you on radar lads, you're safe, keep going. It was phenomenal how it picked us all up as a boost.
And you know, I can remember following that trip, and like literally was a nail biting thing.
Yeah.
You were literally, I remember you for my website at the time. I had a website called East Coast Boating, and I remember you doing the write up for that. And I remember you doing these updates as you went along, and it was really. It really put people in the seat of being there with you at the time when you're on that journey. Yeah. And I really felt, wow, this is a boat that I had to know more. So tell me what happened when you got back to Alton Broad.
Well, before we got to Alton Broad, after that episode, things calmed down where other shipping was concerned. Yeah. The weather did not. Yeah. It carried on. We were getting battered. We had huge rollers from the starboard stern quarter picking us up. And I thought, it's going to get light soon. These lads on board are going to get frightened to death. Which happened once they could see the size of the waves. Yeah. They were saying, my God, look at that. And I said, calm down, lads. She's been taking these all night. All these huge rollers you've seen, picking us up and flying us down into these big holes. We've been doing that all night long. The helm had a nightmare. It was juggling the throttle and the helm to stop us broaching. Because when you go down a big wave, if the stern kicks round, the danger is you will roll over. Which is called a broach. But using the helm and the throttle, we managed all overnight to keep us straight. We were only then about three hours off Lowestoft when a mayday came in. It was from a big steel Dutch barge, I think, called John Williams. They issued a mayday. We were the closest vessel to them. It was just off Southwold. Nightmare. So I said to the lads, we're closest vessel, we've got to go. And they said, you're joking, we can't do out for them. They're 3 times bigger than we are. I said, yes, but there's only two. There's only.
Is the family just going past the other grandchildren? Yeah.
There's only 2 persons on board that, 2 souls on board that, and a dog. We're not trying to rescue the ship, we're trying to rescue the people. The ship doesn't matter, the people do. I said, I've got it on the chart, we've worked it out, the 5 miles west of us, we've got to turn to port and at least try and help these people out. Because if we don't, and we just carry on and ignore it and they die, there'll be an inquiry, someone's going to be responsible, it'll be us. Yeah. And we've got to do the right thing. So I was just about to answer the mayday, and give them an ETA of when we could get there, when on VHF Channel 16, it was the best sound we'd ever heard. Up came Lowestoft RNLI. We're on our way, we'll be there in 15 minutes. We were cheering on board because we knew they were far more capable of rescuing these people than we were. So we just carried on heading north, and then sure enough, 10 minutes later, inshore of us, because they knew the waters better than we did, was the RNLI, bows up, big white spray, flying south, flat out, on the way to rescue the crew, which they did. They rescued them, they saved them.
Was it Henry who's the coxswain there?
I have no idea, but it was so nice listening to them and watching them coming south.
Yeah.
And then within 2 or 3 hours, we were at the harbour entrance to Lowestoft, still getting battered about, and then it got a bit sublime and silly, because we'd survived all this journey in seas that this boat should never have been, and she didn't deserve to be in that, neither did we. But we'd got there, and I called up, I think Dave was on the helm, and I called Lowestoft Port Harbour Authority, and he told us to wait and hold station because there was a boat coming out. We couldn't believe it, all that journey, and we now weren't allowed in. And we were running out of space to the harbour entrance, so I had to go on the helm and said, brace yourself lads, and I was reading the waves, got hold of the throttle, and had to come about 180, which was really awkward, and go back out away from the harbour and turn again. That was ever so dangerous, but we managed it. And then the tiniest ever fishing boat you've ever seen came out the harbour. We could have passed them on the way in.
I think I probably know what the fishing boat was.
I don't know.
At the time I was moored. My boat was moored in Lowestoft at the
Right.
time. And so I knew the boats were familiar to go in and out of the harbour at the time. But I seem to recall you coming back, and I recall seeing the pictures on Facebook and things of you in Alton Broad, and you had a good response. Yeah. So, moving on from that, a few months later, we had the chance to go to sea together, didn't we?
We did, yes. Yeah. Was that Southwold we went to?
Yeah. Yes. So I organised something called the Big Weekend, which was just a fun get-together of boats. And I think you gave a talk.
Yeah, I probably did. Yeah, did we not stop at the Royal Norfolk Yachting Club before we went?
That's exactly right. We were at Royal Norfolk and Suffolk Yacht Club.
So we'd come through Mutford Lock again and gone down there and stopped there for the evening.
I remember taking some really great photos.
One of which went on the magazine, didn't it? Wasn't it your photograph that put it on the Anglia Afloat magazine?
Yeah,
on the front cover too. That's down to you.
I was thrilled. I took
so were we.
The only proper decent photo I've taken in my life, and it kind of is legendary. But there's two other things that have stayed from that. The first one's the pride that you had, but also the flag, because the flag you've got on the bow at the moment is a very special flag.
Well, that took the earning, didn't it?
Yeah.
That is the Thames Pageant flag. We had lots of scrutineering. We had lots of organisation before the event ever took place. It was online. It was providing passports, guests on board, all this carry on. And then on the day of the event, you had final scrutineering. The police came alongside and the river police and checked who was on board, should have been on board, and that you had no guests that weren't on the list. Once the final scrutineering, they gave you the Thames Pageant flag, which had to be flown. It wasn't an option. We all wanted to fly them anyway, of course, but you had to fly that. So we knew we were getting one, and they'd asked us, what size do you want? Yeah. And you had to tell the organisers what size of flag, and we made that flagpole purely for that day's event, just for that day. And of course we've still got it. We're supremely proud of that flag, but we only now fly it on special occasions. This weekend, as you're aware, we're at the annual Wooden Boat Show, which is run by Dave Woolerton. It's at Beccles every year. It starts in Alton Broad. We have a cruising company. We fly it for that. If we've got a special anniversary or a birthday, a celebrity, or just somebody that needs a bit of recognition, we'll fly the Thames Pageant flag. But rarely will you see Broad Ambition on the Broads flying that flag, because it's so special. It'd just take away the importance of it if we flew it every day.
And you mentioned celebrities. Have you had celebrities on board?
We have. We've had quite a few. For me, All right, we've had news crews on board. There's a video you can see online of Broad Ambition going to sea with the Royal Navy and MTB 102.
Yeah.
That was quite a special day, and you can find that on YouTube. But out of all the celebrities we've had on board, the best one for me was Jack Powles. It wasn't Jack Powles, the original owner, it was his nephew, Jack Powles, that built Broad Ambition.
Yeah.
He was the yard manager when this boat was being built. He had hands on, he was in charge of building it. They knew they were going to use it to make a mould, the plug as it were.
Yeah.
We met him in Wroxham. We've got his signature in the visitors book. It's all been recorded. It was in his late 90s, and he stood on the jetty and looked at her and just burst into tears. It was so emotional. And we got him on board, and he was throughout the boat, and he was lifting deck boards up and saying, I put these ribs in here. That's my hands on. He said, I can't believe you've saved it. I'm so pleased you've saved this boat. Out of all the boats we built, this was the one.
So it's very interesting because in my mind, every year that passes, these are skills that are not being passed on to people.
That's
Fewer
correct,
people
yeah.
Going into apprenticeships.
We haven't got the skills. We do a lot of learn by do method.
Yeah.
We listen to people like Robin next door, who's a time-served boat builder. There's still a few about. They are so generous with their advice and time, and it passes on to people like us. In ourselves, we're too old to pass these skills on, but we're getting some idea, and that allows us to keep these boats going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a fabulous boat. Doc's having a good look at the camera there.
Go on, you're in way, Ferdy. Go on, up there.
I suppose the last thing to ask is plans for the future. Where do you see, you've had this fabulous period of 17 years with Broad Ambition. Where do you see the next 17?
Well, firstly, there's 4 owners of Broad Ambition. There always has been. 1 or 2 have come and gone. Me and my brother are still here. What you have to remember is we don't really own Broad Ambition. We're just custodians.
Yeah.
We're just looking after her. We're maintaining her, enhancing her where we can sympathetically do it, so she still retains the 1960s look of an old wooden Broads boat. So, yes, officially, of course, we're the owners, but we're not. We just look after her, and hopefully she'll move on. I've got a lad, he's in his late 30s, as is my daughter. They might take her on, who knows. We're just doing our best to keep her afloat in a condition where she can keep plying the Broads, along with all these other wonderful wooden boats we see us. As to me personally, well, that depends on how long God gives me and how healthy I remain. If I'm healthy enough to keep looking after her, I'll keep looking after her.
I will go back to your point about having lots of ballast to go down to the Thames, and you said there was plenty of beer. So I take it that Broad Ambition runs on ballast, which is beer.
Oh yeah, and genuine Pusser's rum, of course.
Genuine Pusser's rum. Griff, it's been it's a pleasure to talk to you.
You're welcome.
And it's been a pleasure to know you for so many years. And every time I see this boat on the river, it just lifts my heart. It's kind of it has that feeling. I know things on the Broads aren't as they were and have been a lot of challenges, and I know that there are 1 or 2 things that a lot of people wish they could change. If you could change one thing about the cruising area, which is the Broads of Norfolk and Suffolk right now, what would you change? I
would change the Broads Authority to going back to the Port Commissioners of Great Yarmouth. They knew how to look after the Broads. Right up until the early 80s. The Broads Authority in itself was a good idea. The idea was good. In practice, it's been a nightmare. The Broads since the early 80s, in my eyes, and I'm no expert, although I have got obviously local knowledge, up to the 80s we could get everywhere, moorings were plentiful, the rivers were rammed full of holidaymakers and newbies, as we call them, to the system. It's been going downhill ever since. We lose moorings, the rivers are getting choked up. What have we gained? Bigger bills, more money, bigger tolls, less accountability. So if there's one thing I could change, it would be to disband the Broads Authority, or at least put somebody in charge that knows the rivers. There's so many people's livelihoods and history depend on these rivers, and the Broads Authority are just wiping it out. So that's what I would change.
It's a really sad thing to hear, and I know many people would probably agree with you. However, we can only look to the future.
We can.
Griff, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for speaking to me today, and I look forward to seeing you again. And as somebody from Doncaster who's had this affair with the Broads for 65 years, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice to have had you on board.
Cheers, thank you.